Hey there, welcome back to Tennille Talks. All right, y'all, so in this reading, I have twin flame in the center and I have soulmate. I'm not quite sure if these are the same people or if the soulmate had to come before you can meet the twin flame, okay? So we'll go through this reading together. When I first started to lay cards out, I almost heard, like for a period of time, you may have been in the energy of emotional loss. In traditional tarot, that is the Five of Cups. Sometimes we hear it as crying over spilt milk. And so there could have been a connection with a soulmate that you were really invested in. And whether you dated for 3 years, 3 months, or you had 3 solid attempts or whatever, nothing about what you poured into that relationship was ever going to be able to return to you. Something equal, something balanced, or anything that was fulfilling. But for a period of time, it looks like there was some type of grief, remorse, or loss for the way this situation or the relationship with this specific soulmate, like there was a grieving period, okay? Crying, wallowing, in order to really deal with what the outcome of this connection was. Now, if you had to describe this person, they're coming out in the energy of lust, okay? Now, this not only is somebody who had a lust, well, it says that the thing that they lusted after was money. So this is somebody that is like deeply rooted in the material world. And so they were only concerned about cash, investments, assets, inheritance, good fortune, money comes to me, financial growth, this kind of thing, right? They lusted after worldly things. A lot of conflict is going on or could have gone on when you were in the connection with this person. So for you to come out in the energy of the Five of Cups who's dealing with an emotional loss, this is almost somebody who only really has emotion for like the tangible things. And so they couldn't fill your cups because if you fill your cups with like shoes and clothes and like none of that is emotionally fulfilling for you, but it could have been definitely fulfilling for them. And so it's almost like y'all weren't really even speaking the same language, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't love. This was definitely a person that your soul needed to cross paths with. Now, I want you to look at the size of this deck. Look at how thick this deck is, right? I have one card in the deck that says TMH, the Most High. This is a relationship where the Most High was in the middle. Okay, and so this is what I mean about this is almost like the final hurdle that you get over before you become a part of a collaboration with the Most High. When I was like describing this reading to myself, I almost, imagine somebody's crying and the Most High being like, what you crying for? And then you start telling them the story and it's like, now, if you don't stop that, if you don't stop it, right? You're supposed to be collaborating with me. Like, you and I are supposed to be working together. And you sitting over here crying about this person, this woman, this man. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't stop. And so I feel like for a period of time, you could have been really hurt about this connection. But this is the very connection that pushed you into your divine expression. So the collaboration with the Most High was always going to be on the other end of the emotional loss that you experience with this person, right? This is like the worst business partner ever. But then your next business partner is God, right? And so you can only win. Business is always going to be great because of who you're collaborating with. So you were going to achieve greater goals when you were in this relationship or this collaboration with the Most High, but you just had to get there. And getting there required you to get over somebody in lust or somebody in worldly energy. And if you have the ability or if you are called to collaborate with the Most High, you definitely are not a person who's worldly or who's like in your flesh or super carnal or lusting after money. Like, in order to live in that type of language and energy, you're not speaking the energy that you would have need to have spoken in order to kind of have this divine purpose. So for a period of time, whatever the conflict, whatever the disputes, whatever the fighting was with this soulmate, it caused you to be in some type of mental prison. But before you could really collaborate with the Most High, you had to heal that. Maybe you had to step away. Maybe you had to go through isolation. You kind of had to rest and kind of rejuvenate your spirit, body, mind, and soul in order to get fit and ready for whatever this divine project turns out to be. In the next part of this reading, we have disruption. In this deck, disruption is tower. So there's emotional loss, and then there's like a tower moment. And the tower moment doesn't always have to be bad, but this is like a shocking event. You go from dealing with somebody who is in lust energy all of a sudden to being a healer, right? This is the relationship that taught you that you are a healer, and your client was you. You had to heal yourself from what you experienced with this person, but you were collaborating with the Most High while you were healing. And little do you know, what you did to self is the very thing that you were supposed to do and offer others. The person calls you conflict, this specific soulmate. This person calls you conflict because they were trying to disrupt the fact that you had this calling. Now, it doesn't have to be conscious. Like, this person didn't have to be aware, right? You know, this could have been an unknown type of something that was moving and stirring inside of them, right? But this is about like a conversation between two souls. Your soul was always supposed to be a healer on a specific day at a specific time. This person, as long as you were still in some type of entanglement with them, they were supposed to try to stop, obstruct, whatever your commitment was to your soul, right? But this was the assignment that you had to have, and it was also the assignment that you had to heal from. So you did it, which is the tower moment. Now, my handmade card that comes out with this one, it says a quote by George Eliot: "It is never too late to be who you might have been." You know how there are some relationships, when you meet this person, you're one way. But in the relationship and after the relationship, you don't even remember who you were before you, like, you just don't remember who, you don't look like who you were when you first met them. I feel like there are some connections that have the ability to take the life out of you. This specific situation almost altered your identity. But at the same time, it took you to a point of rock bottom where like you really had nothing else to go off of. And so it's like, I might as well resurrect a version of me, or I might as well resurrect an idea or a dream or something I used to be interested in, right? And it's almost like this is the very thing that was supposed to be destroyed. But when you heal from this person, you almost heal an aspect of you that died while maybe you were engaged with them in some type of way, right? And so this is about a rebirth. But something literally had to kill you in order for you to kind of be like the phoenix rising again. It's okay to try again. It's okay to try again. It's okay to try again. But this time you were trying at a version of self that maybe you had to abruptly put down in order to entertain or to heal this specific person. The mental prison that you were in, it was a mental prison that was supposed to stop you from some type of agreement, wish, or hope. Like your soul could have been wishing, hoping, and longing for something, but maybe it never made it from your soul to your lips. Like maybe it never came out of your mouth, right? So there are some dreams, there are some things that we really want, but we don't really have the strength to even say it or admit it to self, because we aren't even, because sometimes things deplete you so much. It almost seems silly to dream again. It seems silly to think that you can have a reality that doesn't feel like emotional loss. This is something that took you to rock bottom. And you were like, oh, look at all this shit I lost. Or look at all this shit I left down here. I guess I'm going to pick one of these things up and go ahead and try this. But literally the thing you picked up, it was a collaboration that the Most High always wanted you to pick up. But you had to get through that. You had to go through this person. Okay. So you at rock bottom. You find it. You pick it up. This is the adventure. But before you could get through the adventure, you had to unload all those burdens that were put on your back as a result of being connected to this person. When I say unload burdens, I mean you had to heal. You had to heal. Some relationships they weigh on you. Sometimes you literally put on pounds, or maybe your posture changes, right? Like the way you look changes because of the energy of the nature that you are carrying. And when I say you're carrying it, I mean anybody that you are involved with, you have to support their energy too. sometimes they got demons with them. Sometimes they got entities or they got darkness that they haven't been able to release. And so when you're in a connection, you are connecting to every aspect of them. Now, you are a healer, and something about this connection, meaning like when you like bend down to pick up the idea or the dream that you used to have, like when you pick it up, the very burden that you were carrying from your connection, it is almost like it wanted you to believe, don't touch it, don't pick it up, that's the wrong way, don't do that, don't, it was almost like the energy that they deposited on you. It was even supposed to impact you in the future, even if this connection ended anyway, right? It was supposed to stop you from picking up the very thing that you were supposed to recover. But you were supposed to think that you were going the wrong way. Now, in the center of the reading, we have victory and success. So this was a spiritual battle that forced you to go through some changes. But luckily, you turned the change into some type of adventure. And so now the very adventure is one that brings you victory, success, fame, notoriety. Now we have twin flame. And so I don't know if the twin flame comes as a part of the victory and the success, or if you gained victory over the twin flame by recovering your own stability or harmony. Y'all will know. Now we have the twin flame though. So when we have victory and success, I also have a card. It says, don't go back to less just because you are too impatient to wait for better. So at some point, there is a separation between the soulmate and you. There was an opportunity. Maybe this person who is in lust, maybe this person starts to call you back. Maybe this person wants you to go back to a version of self that you used to be. But remember, you're this healer. You're in the process of taking these burdens off your back and unloading the heaviness of what this relationship was to you. But I want you to know, every burden on your back and everything that you are unloading, this is like a divine exercise that you would have had to do in order to develop and evolve your soul in this way, right? So sometimes things feel bad, but our soul is willing to carry the weight of the situation because it understands what's on the other side, okay? So something about stopping you from doing the very thing, right? And so this person could have come back in for another spell, come back in for another cycle, come back in to trigger you again, right? And something inside of you beat this spiritual battle because you're like, you know what? I'm gonna wait. I have a feeling that I can experience something different in a relationship. I can have a different connection, right? Like I'm willing to just wait for the right person to come instead of being so impatient that I keep returning to you and going through cycles of abuse and disappointment. For you to have that level of awareness where you choose that you are not going to go backwards, you would rather just stand still and wait, meant that the manipulation or the ability to dominate you emotionally, like that had broken. That was the indication that you had won this spiritual battle. Like this was a victory for you. When somebody from the past could no longer get you to come back to them, it meant that any type of control that they once had on your emotions, right? Any type of control that they once had, it was gone. And it was gone because your awareness belonged to you and the Most High. And so this is like somebody who only wanted you to think about them, feel about them, even if they weren't even there in your physical space. They expected your emotions and your mind to only be tied to them, right? Literally, even if they're absent. This was a spiritual battle, and your soul had to overcome whatever this was, and you did. So you decide not to go back. You decide to wait for better. And I have a card that says, enjoy the silence. So something about life started to feel different. It started to feel lighter. You know, sometimes people just have noisy energy or noisy spirits. They don't even got to talk. Like you could just feel the chaos. Something about that connection when you were separate for a period of time, The silence, not hearing or feeling or sensing that person's energy, gave you a sense of peace and comfort, to the point that when they tried to return, you were like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. I don't need to hear. No, I'm good. And what's wild is if you had entertained or even went back one time, it would have activated their ability to dominate your awareness, right? So I don't have anything out here that says spell work, but manipulating somebody emotionally is spell work. Messing with people's mind, messing with people's feelings, trying to dominate and control and make people codependent by manipulating them with your absence or your presence. We have somebody in lust here. And so if this is somebody who lusts after money and finances, if you don't have what they want you to have, or if you don't look how they want you to look, however they make you feel is controlling you, right? Like, it has the ability to put you in a mental prison. Because you feel less than, you feel caged, you feel trapped, you don't feel good enough, you feel like you're not worth enough. So this could have been somebody who kind of played with you, literally in order to get you trapped and stuck, only on them, okay? So the fact that you were okay, the fact that you were not impatient and you didn't return, you decided to wait for better, reveals something about you. So, y'all, Game of Thrones, I'm sorry if y'all didn't watch it, but like, there are two characters in Game of Thrones. And like, there was a lord, a young lord. I can't remember anybody's name. Sorry, y'all. So let's imagine that a highborn, a royal, is kidnapped. Well, when he's kidnapped, he is abused and broken so bad that he now believes his name and identity to be something totally different than it was. He's a highborn, he's a royal, but as a result of being kidnapped and abused, he only identifies with this new character, this new personality. That's what I'm seeing in this reading. Somebody is confused. They are confused because whatever they did to you emotionally, it was supposed to break the identity that you really had. Like, it was supposed to break your true identity, so that you only identify with the version of you that they formed by way of abusing you emotionally. So now you decide not to go back. And so now they're like, well, if you're not coming back, well, then what are you doing over there? I have throat chakra. Throat chakra is like, if somebody asks you your name and you don't answer, how are people going to know you, right? And so it's like somebody could have asked you your name emotionally without even really saying what's your name, but like emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, you could have been resonating a frequency that was giving a false name and a false identity. You could have only have been identifying with the feelings that were left behind from this connection. But then one day you remember that you're highborn, you remember that you're royal, and it impacts you on every layer of your being. And so I'm talking about a shift in frequency, a change in frequency. One frequency made you feel like a peasant, and it's really because of the residue that was left over from this relationship. But then you switch frequency by not going back to the abusive connection that first revealed to you that you were a peasant. Not that it was true, but like that was their intention. And then you're like, you start to remember things about self. You start to pick up aspects of self. And so now when people ask you your name, you don't name the name that your abuser gave them. You're not resonating at that frequency. And I'm really talking about your throat chakra, your ability to speak the truth, your ability to reveal your divine identity. Once you heal and start collaborating with the Most High, you start to understand who you are. And so now you are speaking the truth, the discernment, your ability to cut through confusion, the clarity and the knowledge that you have about self. These are people who are expecting you to use your slave name. They wanted you to be a slave to the emotional abuse and the mental abuse that they called you. As soon as you stop using the slave name, I literally have confusion and illusion. These people don't know what. They don't know what happened, but they don't know why. They don't know why you are no longer standing in fear. They don't understand why your emotional state is no longer one of anxiety. These are people who wanted you to think that life is frightening, which is why they had to abuse you and treat you like they wanted you in a prison. Not that you ever had to be handcuffed or chained or physically put in a cell. but they wanted you in a prison. All while you are free, right? They wanted you to believe that God is punitive, right? And they wanted you to go through the process of withdrawal, meaning they never wanted you to step up to who you were. They always wanted you to stand back behind the mic, right? Like afraid to project, afraid to stand out and to like own your identity. But now when they come back, you got the mic in the hand, you're walking around the stage, and it's just like, what the, so there is a level of confusion. But then also these people are feeling like, well, maybe we were the ones under the illusion the entire time. I have friendship, network, or team. When you decide not to go back and they check on you and you no longer are in the frequency that they needed you to be in order to still be this victim, this slave, this person using a different identity signature, right? They had a plan for you. I literally have schedule, up in the clouds, and light. And so what I'm seeing here is they were coming back for your sacral chakra. They were coming back for your creative expression, your sexual energy, and your emotions. But by time they come back, you're already using it, right? Somebody like, you got some, you're like, no, it's all gone. You got some of that sacral chakra I could use? No, it's all gone. I'm using it. No, like we're using it right now. I have none to spare. Like that's the energy. So there was a period of time where you were not up at the mic. You were not identifying or standing in your true divine identity. And so all that space allowed other people to come in and to speak in front of you in order to identify who you were. Right? And it was only because of what they did to you that you felt like you had to stand steps away from the mic. But step by step, you heal. Every time you take off a burden, every time you remove something heavy from the experience, you get closer to the mic. And now you are owning the stage. But when I say owning the stage, I mean you're owning the truth of your identity. If somebody asks you your name now you're like, bam, and you just say it. But it is the correct name. It is the essence and the energy that is truly aligned to like your divine expression. Like it's really you now, okay? So in the last section of the reading, we have fertility. So what if all you had to do was step close to the mic so that nobody else could get in front and speak for you or identify you? What if all you had to do was to get close to the mic in order to activate your fertility? We end the reading with somebody being the Empress or an Empress energy. And so I feel like this soulmate was some type of development, right? And it's almost like every time you overcome a connection, a relationship, or an experience, you take one step closer to the mic. You're really getting closer to identifying who you are. And it's by being people who keep identifying who you're not. But you have to agree that you are not that, right? Which is why don't be impatient. Don't go back to less. Wait for better. When you wait for better, you become better. Because you don't settle. You don't reverse your growth. You don't reverse your evolution. So the reading talks about this Empress being in some type of fertile energy. My handmade card. It says they didn't disappear. You shifted frequencies. You're not reachable on that channel anymore. So the very person that we start the reading with, who lusts after everything worldly, is in the energy of jealousy, envy, hesitation, and worry, because now you are coming up as the Empress, somebody, and listen, all you had to do was get to the mic to give birth to whatever. And it doesn't have to actually be a mic, but it means that when you speak, the sound, the vibration, the frequency, it is really you. It is not you coming from a space of mental conflict. It is not you speaking based on some type of emotional loss that you experienced. It is not you speaking from a broken spirit, meaning like when you speak, but the sound is your sound, nobody else's. There's no pain attached to this sound. There's no experience attached to this sound. You have healed it. You release the burdens. You put them down. And so this is purely you. And so if there is a person that you feel like you haven't heard from, or has ghosted you, or who disappeared, this says they didn't disappear, you just changed channels, right? So y'all, this comes out with the energy of justice. The fact that you changed channels, the fact that nobody can reach you, and what I really feel by reaching you, meaning like when the past comes back to pull you back and you don't go with them, that is their moment of reckoning. They recognize that you are on a different vibration. You're on a different channel that they can't control. You are on a channel that they can't access. Now, at one point, they can control your mind, heart, and spirit. But now they can't, you won't even move. Not only won't you move, but you are living in your own energy. They can't take it. They can't use it. They can't siphon it. They can't make you think you are not sexy. They can't make you think you are not creative, right? They cannot take your expression away. You're at the mic. And at one point, you could have been very scared to show up as you. Because as long as you have known, just being you has been painful, it has been sad, it has been disappointing, it has been a very broken experiences. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes if we look at the versions of self that we have played in life, there are some characters, although it was still us, like there are some characters we were like, oh, that's a hard role to play. Or I don't want to be, imagine auditioning for a play. And the characters that you could audition for, they are you, but they are you in different times, different years, different relationships, different scenarios. And when you look at it, like that's not necessarily your first choice. So who you are right now is your first choice. But when you look at the characters that you had to play, it's like, damn, I played that role. I did that. And so now we're in the energy of justice. The fact that you can't be reached, the person who is in jealous and envious energy is going through an ocean of suffering. So we have emotions, overwhelmed, hopeless, negativity, ignorance, powerless. Everything I say is everything that you felt when you were a different character, when you were a different version of self. And anybody that benefited, this person specifically that benefited off of using your energy, right? Now that you have it all back, all of this is theirs. This is your justice. You can't be reached. And if you can't be reached, then this is where they're sitting. Mental illness, narcissists, grief, anger, weakness, struggles, anxiety, spiritual death. Now this person has the broken spirit, the broken mind, and the broken heart. To finish the reading, not only, so this is about you getting justice in two ways. One, because literally the energy that you sat in as a result of what you experienced with this person, they're sitting in that. So that's your first justice. Your second justice is there is an alliance coming. This alliance is coming out in the energy of the Three of Cups. This means, and I'm going to tell you the other side of this. You are getting justice in the form of a connection. Remember how you didn't go back and you had to wait for better? It's almost like better is here. And this better is coming, but it's coming as a part of your creativity. It says creativity is your inner expression. Unleash it. And so when you weren't releasing a version of yourself that you really were, you could only attract specific people. But now that you have unleashed the beast in you, now what you attract are people that are really in alliance with this frequency. If these people can't reach you energetically, well, who are the people that can? So that's two-sided justice. Somebody is suffering, and you get an alliance that is aligned with the energy and the frequency that you are now moving in. But there's another thing. The jealous and the envy, somebody thought that while they were doing whatever, I think that this is a person that could have been third-party relationships. And maybe when they were absent, they thought that you were in an ocean of suffering. Maybe they thought that you were living in a state of jealousy and envy, because they weren't. Maybe they thought that you were living in some type of jealous and envy. They thought that you were in an emotion of suffering because they had alliances, meaning like this is somebody that could have been very open sexually, or they entertained a lot of people. And one of the reasons why it was important for them to like do that consistently with you is because it would keep you feeling less than. It would keep you being afraid to step up to the mic, because it's like, you have been a character and it's not fun to be this person. So why would I ever think that I have something to offer, something to say? Why would I ever believe that there's another identity that I could have? Right? And so this person wanted you to be somewhere suffering, crying, jealous, and envious, that they weren't there with you or for you. But the justice is that the very thing they did to you, the very thing they wanted for you, has now become their reality. And the connections and the collaborations that are really fit for you, those enter your life in the form of alliances, okay? So this is somebody literally getting what they gave. Whatever they gave you is exactly what they get back. But the only reason why they're getting it back, there's a person standing here and the person standing here. As long as this person is throwing shit at you, you're just going to take shit. But when you move and they throw, you're not there anymore. That's essentially what you did on an energetic level. You just moved out of the way. And so you moved into the path of better, because you decided not to stay and you decided not to go back, right? So that's what this, it's still 30. Okay, 31 minutes. All right, y'all. So that's this reading. That's this reading. All right. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.